Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to my journey to Islam. May God's peace and blessings be on all of our viewers. My name is Karen Shaw and I will be your host today. And I have the pleasure of interviewing a friend of mine. Her name is Sister Roraima Aisha Kanar. Welcome, Sister.
Well, thank you. Assalamu alaikum. And to all the viewers. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. I'm happy that we get the chance to talk today and share your story with our viewers. You want to go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm born in Cuba to parents, father from the Canary Islands and the mother from Spain background. They were both born in Cuba. I lived in Cuba till I was 5, and then we came to the United States.
How was that? Do you remember that trip?
Oh boy, yeah, it was kind of exciting for a 5-year-old, except that they broke my toys, and that was something that I wasn't too happy about because they wanted to check to see if we had any money.
Smuggling.
Yeah, because we had to come with limited amount of things. But we were welcomed in this beautiful country of the United States, alhamdulillah. And part of my journey, of course, of my life. And we were very happy in Miami. We had a tough time, you know, being able to survive for a while, but everything, God willing, came along. And
did you have any family or friends here when
I
you
had
came?
no family. No, we were we're a big family, but we weren't close together. We were basically father, mother, brother, and grandmother and myself.
Okay.
And we came here. My brother is 10 years older than myself, and he wasn't really a close friend because we had too much age difference. But it was okay when we came here to the United States.
So what was your new childhood like in America?
Well, we found a little bit of culture difference. My father was very strict in our home. And here the kids were more free to run around and do things on their own by themselves. So that right there was a little bit of a shock to me, and especially that I couldn't do what the other kids did. But that was okay. I respected my father and my mother very much, and we did a lot of family things together, so we were fine.
Did you have religion in your life as a child?
Through my mother, yes. My mother was a very religious woman. Very God-fearing. Everything that happened was through the will of God, and that spirituality she instilled in me, and I thank her every day for it.
Alhamdulillah.
Yes, I went to Catholic school for 12 years.
Okay.
Until I graduated high school, and some people say it's a terrible experience, but to me it was a wonderful experience. I had very good friends with the sisters.
With the nuns?
Yeah, with the nuns. The religious people to me were always closer to me. I felt I could trust them, and that I could, I don't know, I guess I felt they had more things in common with me than most other people.
So did you always have faith as a child?
And I needed it to survive.
You had a connection with God?
It was something that I couldn't live without.
Okay.
And it was very important in my life, and I wanted to keep it in my life. Even through my teenage years, it was important for me.
Tell me a little bit more about the nuns. What did you like about them?
Well, I respected them for being so close to God and being very caring. Their dress, I loved the way they dressed and that they covered, and they had beautiful flowy fabrics. I guess that called my attention at some point.
And they're wearing their hijab,
their hijabs that they were wearing.
Right.
And also, they were very caring with people, charitable, and all of that was in me, and I like to share with them to do those kind of things. At some point in high school, I wanted to be a nun too, right when I was getting ready to graduate.
You thought about becoming
a nun? I
nun.
thought of becoming a nun.
And what happened? Why didn't you?
Well, I told my mother, thinking that I was going to give her the biggest gift of my life. And it was a big shock for her, because she said that she almost started crying, telling me that she wanted grandchildren and she wanted me to get married and have a wedding, and I wasn't going to have it. at that time. So I said, well, I can't do this. And I think at that moment I started questioning my religion and really what being spiritual was versus the type of life that I needed to lead. And then I said, well, maybe I'll be a missionary in Africa. And that also made her very upset. I guess she didn't want me away from home or away from being close to them. So then God sent me some people from Saudi Arabia and from Syria that I met in the University of Miami. And through this relationship, I was able to, find Islam. I was given a Quran. I read. They gave me a lot of different books. And later on, I started having interaction with the family of these two boys that I met in the university. They were boys, but to me, in my life, it was okay to have friends that were boys. So God sent me their mom that was always coming in from overseas, even though she didn't speak English. She didn't know how to read or write, but she was the biggest blessing in my life for me.
How did you communicate with her?
With hand signals, I guess I learned a lot of words, and eventually I learned a lot of Arabic during the almost 10 years that they were here.
You're so lucky.
I started traveling with the family, with the ladies of the family, of course. Whenever they went to Saudi Arabia, whenever they were in Saudi Arabia, I'd visit them. I went to Syria, I went to Lebanon,
Now let me ask you, were you Muslim already at this point?
When I first met them, I wanted already to become Muslim because I found in Islam that Islam was a religion between God and myself, and no one else had to judge me. Therefore, whatever I did, whatever I thought, whatever I felt, God knew what I was feeling and thinking, and that was very important to me.
How was that different? How was Islam different from your Catholicism that you had practiced as a child?
Well, in Catholicism, I felt that I had to believe a lot of things that had no logic to me. There was no explanation. I tried for at least 2 years. When I first started studying Islam, I tried for at least 2 years to go see priests to get answers to many of my questions, and they had hardly any.
Can you give us an example of some of those questions?
Well, something like, why would I have to go confess to a human when a human sins just like myself? Why would he have the power to forgive me? Jesus had power to forgive, but he was a prophet, or he was when we were in Catholicism, to us he was God. So of course he could forgive, but why a human? Who gave them a power? Also, you were supposed to believe in the 7 sorrows of Mary and the Holy Spirit and the Trinity. Which there was no logic behind the Trinity to me. How could one person be the same as God, be the same as the Holy Spirit? And all these things were very, very intellectually challenging to me. I didn't want to have to believe in this.
You needed answers, and they couldn't
give
no
you
answers. They
said,
what, just
they would
believe?
get upset. No, they would get upset and say, are you a Catholic? What's the matter with you?
Why are you questioning?
Yes. And then they told me that I would be excommunicated from the church if I decided to not believe in these things. So, and that was a very powerful word for Catholics.
Sure.
But then I figured that, God is God, and he would love me for questioning, and he gave me a brain to question. So I started to seek knowledge. And God blessed me with the Quran, which had every answer to every question that I had.
So there you found your answers.
And there I found my answers.
And then he put the right people in your path to help you.
Yeah, it was tough because the way of life that we had at that time, we felt it was very moral and very religious and very, because we went to church on Sunday and we gave charity to the church, not to the poor people, but to the church. And at that time, we thought we were perfect, even though we wore low-cut dresses and minis or shorter skirts and nothing, there was no limit to what we would do, even to the point that we could go to church without sleeves.
Mhm.
And I would I would ask myself, how, if you're going to God's house, how can you go uncovered? You know, how could you be so disrespectful when you wouldn't do it in front of your father, maybe, or your uncles? So all these little things I started questioning, and I found the answers in Islam, and I felt comfortable that I wasn't the only one that was thinking this way.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, yeah.
And you traveled. You said you traveled with this family.
Yes.
And their extended family.
May Allah bless them all. Yes, I traveled with them everywhere because I worked with the airline in the accounting department, not as a stewardess, but I was able to have cheap trips, you know. So every time they were in a specific location, they would tell me, come on over and stay with us. And it was wonderful. They treated me like if I was family. And they taught me a lot. I saw their way of life, and it was a way of life that was very similar to my home life, you know. And I felt that I was loved, sincerely loved by them. And this helped me a lot in Islam. It was also, they taught me, they brought me back to having the haya that we're born with, or the shyness that we were born with, because we tend to lose that when we're not Muslim, or even some Muslim can lose it too. But when you start wanting to be in fashion with the styles of the uncovered women, or the women that want to look provocative because that's how they think that they look beautiful, we tend to lose every value that we have. You know, we don't feel embarrassed anymore to be half naked, or we don't feel embarrassed to show all of our legs. And we don't reason, you know, that all these things are things that God has given us, and they're private to us, and we don't need to share with other people.
Yeah, I was raised that way too, so I remember that.
Yeah. And really, they make us feel that if we don't show it, it means that we're embarrassed of it, when it should be the opposite.
That's right.
It's our privacy, and we don't need to show it to anyone that we don't wish to, or we should.
Yeah. How was your, now had you taken Shahada yet?
No, I didn't take Shahada for a few years. Really, I hadn't even discussed the fact of having to take Shahada. I just felt that...
Were you praying? Were you...
I started with Ramadan.
Okay.
And when I saw that God gave me the power to fast when I loved food so much, that was a total mystery to me, that I was able to do it. So that
was
got
a sign
me
for you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Then I started praying, and that was wonderful. I had to learn my prayers in Arabic.
Right.
So one of my friends, the son of the lady that I was telling you, he recorded a little CD at that time. No, not a CD.
A cassette.
Cassette, yes. At that
time. Some of our viewers won't know what that is.
What a cassette is.
But I know.
From our time. And that cassette, I had it in my car, and I would play it over and over till I learned my prayers. And I prayed Al-Fatiha and of course Kul Hu Allahu Ahad for at least 7 or 8 years before I learned any other surahs. But Allah knew my intention and how I'd love to praise Him. So it was easy for me. Now, when I went on one of my trips to Syria, it was the day of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's birthday. We got together with about 100 women in the house of a sheikha, and I took my shahada. And to me, I was always Muslim before, but it was a special place because they were all so loving and caring with me.
Alhamdulillah.
It was something that was so
how
special.
Beautiful! How beautiful! You really got the support and family and friends and a physical journey, not just a spiritual journey. But you were taken physically to visit these wonderful
and it was
places
something
and
that
see
I
it for
didn't,
yourself. And
I didn't know that this was going to lead me to Islam that way. You know, I just thought they were friends, and we were going to have fun, and they were just nice people that were different and fun-loving. Because at that age, in the 20s, you just want to have fun.
Of course.
You know, that's all you think about. Nothing else is important. but it brought me to a whole way of life.
A whole new way of life.
A new way of life
Okay.
that brought me peace, interior peace, and allowed me to be myself and be proud of who I was and be proud of how I thought and not be ashamed to speak or just act
Good.
of who I was.
All right.
Before I wanted to be what society wanted me to be.
And now you
Now
found
I am
yourself.
who I am.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, well, I think that's a good place to stop and take a break.
Okay.
All right, we're going to take a short break and then we will return. Thank you. Welcome back to my journey to Islam. My name is Karen Shaw, and I've been talking with Sister Roraima Aisha Kanar. Was that right?
Yeah,
Did I say it
perfect.
right?
That's
what would you
wonderful.
like me to call you?
You can call me Aisha. It's
Aisha.
easier for you.
Aisha.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Before the break, you told us how you finally officially committed to Islam, and you took Shahada in Syria, right? With
In Syria.
with a big group of
Beautiful.
supporting sisters around you. Oh,
It
my
was
goodness.
wonderful. It was such a beautiful experience.
Aw.
I felt like if all the weight on my shoulders had been lifted.
Did you feel an immediate peace when you did that?
Well, since
You know?
I started reading and learning about Islam, I found an inner peace because I could be myself, and that was the biggest thing. Before, I used to be too focused on what people thought of me and not counting what God thought of me.
Do you think that's the American
I think
culture,
that's the American
kind of
culture,
what we're-
and most of the young girls suffer so much with having to comply with what other people want them to look like or what they want them to be.
And it's an external.
It's an external thing. Many of them are not happy with it, and many of them think they're happy with it, but they don't sit down to analyze it because they're so wound up in the material things here.
I agree.
Instead of focusing on how beautiful they are inwardly and trying to show it outwardly and be able to let people accept them for who they are.
But
And
that
that's
takes a
what
lot of strength, though, and that takes knowing yourself, and that's not an easy process.
I think it comes also from your family. The loving yourself is very important. It's not a matter of becoming conceited or egoistic.
No.
It's a matter of knowing who you are, the values that you have, that your parents have instilled in you, and being proud of it, and not being afraid to speak and let everyone know that this is who you are. You never know who would really has that inside of them too, and maybe you'll bring it out in them, so it gave me a lot of self-confidence.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So what happened when you came back home? Did your family, your friends, how did they
Well,
react?
my mom has never been happy with me being Muslim. She thought that, God, what was going to happen to me? I left my religion that I was born with, and I was baptized. And I said, Mom, baptism is just an act it's just a ritual that means nothing. If you don't change inside, if you don't believe in these things, it means nothing. It's just water being poured on you. So I told her the change in my life has been so great that you need to understand that this is very important to me. So she thought that I was just going to be Muslim for a little while. It was just a fad.
phase.
And I would come back. My friends would bet that I would be back pretty soon.
How old were you at that time?
Well, at that time, I must have been maybe 25,
Okay.
around 25. And I still did not wear hijab. Hijab was the last step that I took. But I kept on learning more about Islam and changing my ways, seeing the beauty in it and seeing the value that it gave me inwardly. So I changed, but my mother still wasn't happy. So one day I sat down with her and I asked her, Mom, I respect you so much more. I love you so much more. The obligations, before I never wanted to even be with you and Dad because it wasn't cool to be with you. I wanted to be just with my friends. My responsibilities have changed in my life. The loves in my life have grown to be who they really should be. Don't you see this in me? She said, my daughter, but your body is so beautiful and you're not going to be able to wear a bathing suit anymore,
no.
or wear a low-cut dress
Oh.
that I used to make for you. And I said, Mom, do you realize what you're telling me? That there's no value in the things that you're telling me. Or I was able to show my hair or things like that. I said, these are things that are irrelevant in life. You know, all my life I was conscious of what people wanted, you know, make sure that everybody would tell me how pretty I was. That's how I would get my high. But that isn't what life is all about. You know, I learned that loving myself and being respectable to my family, respectful to my family, was also very important in who I represented, because I was representing them and how people would see them. So she still didn't want it. She wasn't happy with it. She thought that, I kept on thinking that it was a fad until I married. Eventually after...
Oh, tell us about that.
Well, after 10 years of being Muslim, I had a Cuban girlfriend that worked in the airlines, in the Eastern Airlines at that time. I was working for another airline, and she thought that I was crazy because every time she would invite me to go to the movies or go to clubs, I would tell her no, I couldn't, you know, or she wanted to introduce someone to me, I would say no, I can't unless it's from a religious family or someone that would recommend me someone. So she said, you know what, come on over my house and have some coffee with my parents. I didn't even know she lived with her parents, but she did. So we went to have coffee at her house, and she had met a Turkish boy that had been importing. She worked in cargo department and imported things, and she had saved him money. So when she saved him $1,000, he was so happy. He invited her to dinner to thank her. And she saw that he was too formal. He was very respectful. She was flirting with him, and he wouldn't pay attention to her. So she calls me the next day, and she says, you know what? I met a Sunni boy, and this boy is as weird as you are. I'd like to introduce him to you. So I said, okay, if it's in your parents' house, we'll do it. So we went to have coffee at her house, and she introduced me to my husband, which he wasn't very religious at the time. You know, he was wearing his little shorts from playing tennis, and here I am covered up to my feet with my hijab. And it was a total opposites. We were total opposites. But I felt he was a kind man. I felt he would be a faithful husband. Just from that first meeting, he was such a sweet person. So we married 3 months after. Alhamdulillah. His mother came from Turkey. He went to ask for my hand with my dad, which my dad was in shock. Because that, you know, in the other culture, you just fall in love and tell your parents who you're going to marry. So, alhamdulillah, we've been married almost 28 years, and we have 3 children.
3 children.
Yes, thank God.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
So how do you, how does your faith, you know, how in your family, you're with raising your children?
Wonderful. It's wonderful. Well, first of all, with the faith, you realize the miracles of God that He gives you. You know, you're more conscious of a woman bearing a child, how it comes about in you, how you carry it. All these little things are more obvious to you now. Before, you take it for granted.
Do you feel more grateful?
I feel more grateful for what God has given me, and of being a woman, because I have so many benefits that men don't have. You know, I mean, I can bear a child. I can feel that child in me. I can feed that child. I can be everything to that child. The father is also, but the connection of that mother with that child is, no one can remove it, you know. And so I've been able to, as a wife, be more loving to my husband, understanding to him. We're not only husband and wife, we're best friends. And of course, once my children came around, I wanted to have 12. He didn't let me, though. He said that I was crazy because it would be too expensive later on. No. But the 3 that God has given us have been wonderful. I have a son, is my oldest, and then I have 2 girls. And I've been able to be strong and raise them with my values and make them very proud of what we stand for. Islam has changed my life totally, and it has made me so proud of myself that I've been able to love God so much and be pleasing to Him, and everything I want to do is to please Him. And I've transferred that to my children. And even my husband, I've taught him a few things, believe it or not, even though he came from a Muslim country and I did not.
But you helped him. Yeah.
Yes, that's what marriage is all about. You help each other to bring out the best in each other. And at work also, you know, because I do work. I've always worked in corporate America and in real estate, and it's been challenging. But I feel that people, once they meet me, the shock is when they see me, and then once we have 2 words with each other, they feel like if we've known each other forever, you know,
I'm
because
sure
of the respect and the
yes, and
the
I'm sure
kindness.
you have answered a lot of questions about
Yes.
Islam, that you've helped to, you know, dispel some of those
Oh,
misconceptions that people
definitely.
have.
Well, after 9/11, there were a lot of Spanish people that were very biased towards Muslims. Not many of them know when they first see me that I am Spanish, that I speak fluent Spanish. And they have comments that sometimes does irritate me. So what I try to do is I count to 10 before
you speak,
before my Cuban temper comes out.
Very good.
And I try to be kind to them and ask them, you know, if you have questions, if you have doubts, please feel free to ask me. And we need to be open.
Good.
We need to be open to everyone that is out there that has a question. And I also tell our viewers, any questions that you might have if you're not Muslim, or if you are Muslim, please feel free to ask. You know, this is why we have conversation. This is why God wants us to seek knowledge. And I think every meeting with everyone, you learn something new.
Yeah, we all have things to share.
We all have things to share. And we can all grow together.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
And Islam is something that has been the most wonderful thing in my life. It's been like if I had a total blood change in my system. And my way of life has become so simple to me, so easy to me, that I really don't even remember how my life was before, and I don't desire it a bit. You know?
So your life is different than it was before.
Oh, yes, definitely.
It's better. You still feel connected. You feel more connected to God.
Oh, definitely.
Connected to God.
Oh, well, the connection is every second of my life, because everything I do, I analyze to see if it's something that God would want me to do or not. And if it's wrong and I still want to do it, I pray real hard for God to take that desire away, you know, keep the devil away. And that's how I've taught my children also. And they're very happy to be Muslim. They're very proud to be Muslim. And they love everyone, you know, and everyone that wants to know about Islam, they're more than open to speak about it. And not with the intention of conversion or reversion,
Right.
with the intention of just getting to know each other. The important thing is to know each other and respect each other.
That's what the Quran tells us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's how we become a peaceful, loving community.
Yeah, we have to live together.
Yeah.
Have you read any good books that have helped you along the way? Anything you would recommend?
In Islam? No, I tend to stick to my hadith and my Quran.
All right.
The books can always be misleading, maybe, because you don't know unless you know the authors.
Well, what do you think?
But al-Hikmat, you know, I tend to see the views of Mulana Shafat. I love to see his, you know, his speeches, his recordings, his khutbahs. I read a lot of what he writes about. He helps me and he answers a lot of my questions, and that's very important to me.
Because maybe some people, you know, don't know
we're not all knowledgeable.
Well, that's it.
Yes.
You know, so you need
And
as you're seeking knowledge.
we must respect the people that have taken the step to learn more and to have the experience with more people than we have, you know, and they can always guide us in the right path.
Well, you've had a beautiful journey.
Yeah,
You
it's
really
been
have,
wonderful.
and you
Thank
seem
God.
so happy, and when you smile, your eyes are smiling.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank
and
you.
and keep doing that, because you can affect and touch so many people, Muslims and non-Muslims, and
Thank
I
you.
think that's what we're supposed to do.
It's
you
a
know?
wonderful life.
Now we're getting ready to wrap up. Is there anything, you know, else in particular that you would like to tell our viewers about, you know, the world, anything, what we should be doing, what we should work on? I know women, girls, our daughters, you have daughters, I have a daughter. I know that's real important to you.
I think daughters should take, well, the biggest step in their life is to be proud of being Muslims and proud of being who they are, and help their friends all become close to Islam or learn the values that are within Islam, because they have to be able to be mothers later in their lives, and that's so important. And be close to their friends, be there for them, you know, be they Muslim or not. It's something that's very important in Islam.
To support,
to
listen,
yes, it's
and
not
help
only to
each other.
give materially, it's to give spiritually and emotionally. And girls have to be strong in their faith. You know, be proud of who you are, love yourself, and keep your self-respect. Don't allow to lose that. I think that's the most important thing that the girls must remember. And sons also, you know, they are going to be leaders of their homes at one point.
Fathers,
husbands,
leaders.
Yeah, they can be bosses in their own companies. My son's studying medicine, so he's going to have his own patients to deal with. And with everyone that you come in contact with, you're going to touch in some way, you know, emotionally. And you have to be someone special that they'll always remember you. You don't have to be in the history books. You just have to touch people's hearts, and they'll always remember you.
Well,
Yeah, that's very important.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much,
You're welcome.
Sister Aisha. It was wonderful talking with you.
been a
Thank you for
pleasure.
sharing your story with us. And I hope you can come back again, and
Yeah.
we can talk some more.
I'd love it.
Okay.
You know, I
know
love
we can
to
talk. We're not done. We didn't get to finish, but we ran out of time.
We'll be back.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.